You stayed. You stayed longer than you should have. Not because you were weak, not because you didn't know better, but because you hoped, because you loved, because you kept believing that if you just explained yourself one more time, something would finally click. At first, it didn't look like abuse. There were no bruises, no broken bones, nothing you could point to and say, "See, this is why I'm hurting." It was quieter than that, slower. It crept in through tone, through silence, through the way your words were always met with sighs, eye rolls, or dismissal. You learned early on that speaking up came with consequences, not yelling. Sometimes it was worse than that. It was being ignored, being told you were annoying, being told you were overthinking, being told, "Why are you making a big deal out of nothing?" So you started swallowing things. You told yourself it wasn't worth the argument. You told yourself you were just tired. You told yourself you were too emotional. But the truth is, you were holding your breath in your own relationship. You became quiet to keep the peace. There were things you wanted to say, things that bothered you, things that hurt you. But every time you tried, it turned into a problem. So you stopped trying. You learned how to soften your voice, how to choose your words carefully, how to rehearse conversations in your head before you ever opened your mouth. And eventually, you stopped talking altogether, not because you had nothing to say, but because you were tired of being made to feel like your feelings were a burden. You started thinking, maybe I am too much. Maybe I'm asking for too much. Maybe I should just let it go. So you let it go again and again and again. And every time you did, you disappeared a little more. The prison you didn't see at first. No one told you that you could become a prisoner without bars, that your mind could turn into a cage. You replayed conversations at night. You questioned your reactions. You doubted your memory. You thought, did that really happen? Am I exaggerating? Why do I feel so empty? You felt lonely, even when you weren't alone, because you weren't being heard. You weren't being seen. You were surviving a relationship that required you to shrink. And slowly, without realizing it, you lost your voice, your confidence, your sense of self. You forgot what you liked, what you wanted, what you felt. Everything became about keeping him comfortable, keeping him calm, keeping the peace, even if it meant losing yourself. Why you kept repeating yourself. He said you were annoying. He said you talked too much. He said you kept bringing up the same things. But what he didn't understand, and what you didn't have words for yet, was this. You weren't repeating yourself because you liked conflict. You were repeating yourself because you weren't being listened to. When someone hears you, the pain settles. When someone listens, the wound closes. But when you're ignored, dismissed, or minimized, the pain stays open. So you tried again, and again, and again. Not because you wanted to nag, but because you were desperate to be understood. You wanted connection. You wanted acknowledgement. You wanted someone to say, "I hear you. Your feelings matter." Instead, you got silence, or defensiveness, or blame. And over time, you started blaming yourself. This is how identity gets lost. No one wakes up one day and decides to lose themselves. It happens in small moments, when you don't say what you feel, when you laugh something off that hurt, when you apologize for being upset, when you silence your intuition to keep the relationship alive. You told yourself love meant sacrifice. But no one told you sacrifice shouldn't cost you your identity. You became the version of yourself that was easiest to love, quiet, agreeable, low maintenance. And somewhere along the way, you forgot who you were before you learned to be small. This is not love. Let me be clear with you, because someone needs to be. Love does not require you to erase yourself. Love does not make you feel crazy for having emotions. Love does not punish you with silence. Love does not make you afraid to speak. And love does not call you annoying for needing understanding. If you feel like you have to walk on eggshells, that's not love. If you feel like your voice doesn't matter, that's not love. If you feel trapped in your own mind, that's not love. That's emotional harm. And it leaves scars you can't see, but you feel every day. The moment you start coming back to yourself, one day something shifts. Maybe it's exhaustion, maybe it's clarity, maybe it's the quiet realization that you can't keep living like this. You realize that staying is costing you more than leaving ever could. And you start to ask yourself hard questions. Why am I silencing myself? Why am I afraid to speak? Why am I fighting so hard for someone who won't fight to understand me? And slowly, painfully, honestly, you start choosing yourself. Not because it's easy, but because disappearing hurts more. If this is you, if you're reading this and your chest feels tight, if parts of this sound uncomfortably familiar, I need you to hear this. You are not crazy. You are not too sensitive. You are not asking for too much. You are asking for basic emotional safety. And you deserve it. You deserve a relationship where you don't have to beg to be heard. You deserve a partner who listens without making you feel small. You deserve to exist without apologizing. You are allowed to leave situations that silence you. You are allowed to choose peace. You are allowed to reclaim your voice. And when you do, slowly, gently, you will find yourself again. Not all at once, not perfectly, but piece by piece, and that is worth everything. And the hardest part isn't even the pain itself, it's how quiet it all became. How you learned to suffer silently. You didn't stop talking because you had nothing to say. You stopped talking because every time you did, it came back to you twisted. You'd say you were hurt. He'd say you were dramatic. You'd say you felt lonely. He'd say you were overthinking. You'd say you needed reassurance. He'd say you were insecure. And slowly, you learned a dangerous lesson, that your feelings were the problem. So you started editing yourself. You'd feel something rise in your chest and immediately push it down. You'd think, don't say it, don't start something, it's not worth it. You became so good at holding things in that people thought you were calm, easygoing, strong. But inside, you were exhausted. You were having full conversations in your head that never made it out of your mouth. You were carrying arguments that never happened. You were grieving needs that were never met, and no one saw it. This is how the prison forms. Not with locked doors, but with self-doubt. You start questioning your own memory. You start wondering if you're exaggerating. You start thinking, maybe I'm asking for too much. Maybe this is just how relationships are. You begin shrinking your expectations to survive. And the scariest part, you start forgetting who you were before all of this. Before you learn to walk on eggshells, before you learn to brace yourself, before you learn to read tone instead of words, you forget what it felt like to speak freely, to laugh without checking the room, to disagree without fear. You forget your voice, and yet you stayed. Not because you didn't see the truth, but because leaving felt heavier than staying. No one talks enough about that. Leaving isn't just walking away from pain. It's walking away from hope, from the version of him you fell in love with, from the moments when he was kind, from the belief that maybe if you just tried harder, things could be different. You stayed because you remembered the good, because you saw his potential, because you told yourself every relationship has problems, and because somewhere deep down, you were afraid. Afraid of being alone, afraid of starting over, afraid that maybe this was as good as it gets. You were afraid that if you left, you'd be proving everyone right, that you were too sensitive, too emotional, too much. So you stayed and kept adjusting yourself instead. This is where the bond gets confusing, because the same person who hurts you is also the one you want comfort from. The same person who silences you is the one whose approval you crave. That's not weakness. That's conditioning. When love and pain mix, your nervous system gets tangled. Your body starts associating connection with anxiety, affection with relief, distance with panic. So you cling or you shut down. Sometimes both. And then you blame yourself for reacting. But your reactions make sense. You weren't crazy. You weren't imagining things. Your body was responding to emotional inconsistency, to being loved sometimes and dismissed other times, to never knowing which version of him you'd get. That kind of unpredictability wears a person down. There were nights you lay beside him, feeling miles away. Moments when you wanted to reach out but didn't. Words sitting on your tongue that you swallowed because you didn't want to be told you were starting something again. You felt lonely in the same room as the person you loved. That kind of loneliness changes you. It teaches you not to expect too much, not to hope too loudly, not to need too openly. You start surviving instead of living. And maybe the saddest part is this. You blamed yourself for the relationship failing, even though you were the only one trying to fix it. You read articles, you reflected, you tried to communicate better. You took responsibility for things that weren't yours. You asked yourself, what can I do differently? While he asked himself nothing. And still you stayed because you thought love meant endurance. But love is not supposed to feel like erasing yourself. One day, something inside you started whispering, not screaming, not demanding, just whispering. This isn't right. At first, you ignored it. You were used to ignoring yourself. But the whisper didn't leave. It showed up when you felt your chest tighten before speaking. when you felt relief when he wasn't around, when you imagined a life where you didn't have to explain yourself constantly. That whisper wasn't trying to ruin your relationship, it was trying to save you. Choosing yourself doesn't happen in one dramatic moment. It starts quietly, with noticing how tired you are, with realizing how much of yourself you've given away, with admitting that love shouldn't cost you your peace. It starts when you stop arguing with your own feelings, when you stop telling yourself it's not that bad, because it was that bad. It was bad enough to make you forget who you are, bad enough to make you afraid to speak, bad enough to make you feel small in your own life. That matters. Leaving, emotionally or physically, feels terrifying because you've built your world around not rocking the boat. But staying costs you more every day. It costs your joy, your confidence, your voice. And one day you realize you're choosing between discomfort now or losing yourself forever. That's when things shift. Not because you suddenly stop loving him, but because you finally start loving yourself. Loving yourself doesn't mean hating him. It means telling the truth that you can't keep silencing yourself, the truth that you deserve to be heard without begging, the truth that you deserve emotional safety. And that truth hurts because it means accepting that the person you loved is not the person you need. If you're still in it, reading this quietly, wondering if this is you, I want you to know something. You're not stupid for staying. You're not weak for loving. You're not wrong for hoping, but you are allowed to want more. You are allowed to want a relationship where you don't have to shrink, where your feelings aren't dismissed, where your voice isn't treated like a problem. You are allowed to take your life back slowly, gently, without explaining yourself to anyone who never listened anyway. And if you've already left, emotionally or physically, I want you to hear this too. It's normal to miss him. It's normal to doubt yourself. It's normal to grieve what you wanted it to be. Missing someone doesn't mean you were wrong to leave. It means you're human. Healing doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you stop abandoning yourself. There will be days when you feel strong, and days when you question everything, days when you feel free, and days when the old fear creeps back in. That doesn't mean you made the wrong choice. It means your nervous system is learning a new reality, a reality where you don't have to stay silent to be loved. You will find yourself again, not all at once, not perfectly, but piece by piece, in the moments you speak your truth, in the moments you say no without guilt, in the moments you choose peace over proving yourself. And one day, you'll realize you're no longer a prisoner in your own mind. You'll hear your voice again, and it will sound like yours. This story isn't about him. It never was. It's about you, about the woman who endured, the woman who learned, the woman who finally chose herself. And that choice, even if it came late, even if it came trembling, is powerful. You didn't lose yourself forever. You just went quiet to survive. And now, you're coming back. Got it. I'm going to finish this fully, in the same voice, same honesty, same emotional depth, and bring it to a true closing with encouragement and a gentle, natural invitation to the book/PDF at the end. This is the final stage. This is where the listener is steadied, not rushed. I'm continuing now. And after everything, there comes a moment that doesn't feel dramatic at all. No big explosion, no sudden clarity, just a quiet tiredness. The kind that says, I can't keep doing this to myself. You realize you've spent so long managing someone else's emotions that you don't even know what yours sound like anymore. You realize how often you checked his mood before checking in with yourself. How often you swallowed words because peace felt easier than truth. And it hits you slowly, painfully, that love was never supposed to feel like self-erasure. You weren't asking for too much. You were asking the wrong person. The hardest part isn't leaving the relationship. The hardest part is coming back to yourself. Because when you've been quiet for so long, your own voice feels unfamiliar. When you've been told you're overthinking, trusting your instincts feels scary. When you've been dismissed repeatedly, speaking up feels like a risk. So you start small. You notice what makes your body tense. You notice when you feel relief instead of anxiety. You notice when you say yes out of habit instead of desire. And instead of judging yourself for it, you pause. That pause is where healing begins. You begin to understand that the prison was never just the relationship. It was the belief that you had to stay silent to be loved. And once that belief cracks, everything changes. You start choosing words again, choosing space, choosing honesty, even when your voice shakes. Not to fight, not to convince, but to be true. And that truth doesn't make you difficult, it makes you free. There will be moments you miss him, not because the relationship was healthy, but because your nervous system is used to what it knew. Familiar pain can feel safer than unfamiliar peace. So when the loneliness comes, don't shame yourself. Loneliness doesn't mean you made the wrong choice. It means you're grieving what you hoped it could be. Grief doesn't mean go back. It means let yourself feel, and then keep moving forward anyway. As you rebuild, you'll notice something quietly powerful. You start recognizing yourself again in the way you laugh without checking the room, in the way you speak without rehearsing, in the way your shoulders relax when no one is monitoring you. You start remembering what you like, what you believe, what you want, and you realize you were never lost. You were just buried under survival. You learn that love isn't supposed to feel like a test you're always failing. That connection shouldn't cost you your voice. That being heard shouldn't require repeating yourself until you're exhausted. You learn that real love listens the first time. And most importantly, you learn how to listen to yourself. If you're still in that relationship right now, reading this quietly, unsure, know this: you don't have to decide everything today. You don't have to leave tonight. You don't have to confront anyone before you're ready. But you do need to stop abandoning yourself. Pay attention to the way your body reacts. Pay attention to the fear around speaking. Pay attention to how small you feel. Those are messages, and they deserve respect. If you've already left or are slowly detaching, be patient with yourself. Healing isn't fast. Confidence doesn't return overnight. Your voice comes back in pieces. But every time you choose honesty over silence, every time you choose peace over pleasing, you take another piece of yourself back. And one day, you'll realize you're no longer negotiating your worth. This story isn't meant to shame you. It's meant to remind you that emotional abuse doesn't always look loud. That silence can hurt just as much as words. That losing yourself is not a personal failure. It's a survival response. And survival kept you alive. But now, you're allowed to live. You are not too much. You were underheard. You are not weak. You stayed hopeful in a situation that drained you. You are not broken. You are adapting to emotional starvation, and you are allowed to choose differently now. If this story felt personal, that's because it was meant to. You're not alone in this experience. Far from it. And if you want to continue this journey quietly, in your own time, at your own pace, you can find more stories like this in written form. If you'd like a physical book or PDF books you can read privately, you can visit the website listed below this audio. There, you'll find reflections, stories, and words written for women who are learning how to come back to themselves without guilt, without pressure, without pretending. Take what you need. Read when you're ready. And remember this, above everything else, you did not lose yourself forever. You went quiet to survive. And now, you're remembering who you are. That matters. And there's something else no one prepares you for when you've lived this kind of relationship. The silence doesn't end immediately when the relationship ends, or even when you emotionally detach. The silence moves inside you. You notice it when you want to speak and hesitate, when you start explaining yourself too much, when you feel the urge to soften your truth so it doesn't upset anyone. That's not weakness. That's conditioning. Your body learned that honesty had consequences. So now it flinches before your mind even decides what it wants to say. And this is where many women get confused. They think healing means being confident right away, speaking boldly, never doubting again. That's not how it works. Healing starts with permission. Permission to pause before answering. Permission to say, I need time to think. Permission to notice discomfort without immediately trying to fix it. For a long time, you were taught to prioritize harmony over honesty. But harmony that costs you your voice is not peace, it's self-erasure. Real peace feels quieter, softer, safer in your body. You might notice that after everything, you're more sensitive now. Sounds feel louder, conflict feels heavier, your energy drains faster around people who don't listen. That doesn't mean you're fragile. It means your nervous system is tired of surviving. You spent years being alert, reading between lines, watching tone shifts, trying to anticipate reactions. That level of vigilance rewires you. So if you feel overwhelmed more easily now, it's not because you're failing. It's because your body is asking for something different. Safety, consistency, room to breathe, and you're allowed to give that to yourself. There may also be moments when you question your own judgment. You might think, how did I let this happen? Why didn't I leave sooner? Why did I stay quiet for so long? Those questions come from pain, not truth. You stayed because you were hopeful, because you believed in love, because you were trying to make something work with the tools you had at the time. You didn't fail yourself. You survived with the information and capacity you had then. Growth doesn't come from shaming your past self. It comes from honoring how hard she tried. As you move forward, you'll notice something subtle but powerful. You stop explaining yourself so much. You don't need to justify your boundaries. You don't need to convince anyone that your feelings are real. You don't need permission to feel uncomfortable. You begin to trust that if something feels off, that matters, even if you can't explain it perfectly. This is you coming back online. This is your intuition rebuilding, and it doesn't shout, it speaks quietly. You might also feel grief for the version of you that stayed, not because she was wrong, but because she was tired, lonely, and trying so hard to be loved. Let yourself grieve her. She carried you through something difficult. She deserves compassion, not criticism. And as you grieve, you make space for who you're becoming. Someone who listens to herself. Someone who doesn't argue with her own pain. Someone who understands that love should feel like safety, not confusion. This is where identity slowly returns. You start making choices based on how you feel, not how it will be received. You start honoring your needs without apologizing. You start recognizing when you're shrinking and gently correcting course. And sometimes, that looks like discomfort. Choosing yourself often does. But discomfort that leads to self-respect is very different from discomfort that leads to self-loss. You'll learn the difference. And here's something important to know. You don't need closure from the person who hurt you. You don't need them to understand. You don't need validation from someone who minimized your feelings. Closure comes when you stop needing them to agree with your truth. Your experience is valid because you lived it. As you build a new life, internally or externally, you'll notice how much lighter things feel when you don't have to censor yourself, when you don't have to rehearse, when you don't have to brace. That lightness isn't excitement, it's relief. And relief is a sign you're healing. You're not becoming cold. You're becoming clear. You're not guarded. You're discerning. You're not selfish. You're finally including yourself in the decisions that affect your life. And that inclusion changes everything. You don't have to rush the next chapter. You don't have to know exactly who you are yet. Identity after emotional loss is rebuilt slowly through safety, repetition, and trust. Trust in yourself.